This is the Nobel Podcast, where we talk about how to optimize your technology, life, and mind. We're joined by special operations veterans, entrepreneurs, investors, and others who have overcome difficulty to make it to the top of their craft by staying in the fight. Joe, what is your full name and where did you grow up?
Hey, well, first of all, thanks for having me here. My name is Joseph Choi. Most people call me Joe. Was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, and has spent the back half of my life in Orange County, so Fullerton specifically, out in California.
Where did you go to school?
For high school, went to Sunny Hills High School, and for college, went to the Naval Academy, so I'm one of those guys.
As a kid, I always ask this question, especially for team guys. Did you get into trouble a lot when you were a kid?
Dude, okay, so funny enough, in school, no. I was actually a pretty big square, actually. But growing up, though, let's just say the old school Asian parenting, I got a lot of discipline. But in my early years, I swear, I was like a Dennis the Menace. It's not like I had some mean bone in my body. I just liked causing a lot of mischief.
Now, like as a child, what was the earliest memory you have of wanting to become a SEAL?
It's funny you asked that. So it actually happened in college when I was at the academy. I had no idea what I wanted to do going to the Naval Academy. And it was actually my buddy who also became a team guy. We were in the same company together. So a little background, Naval Academy, you're separated into 30 companies. So that's kind of like your class going on for the whole 4 years. And my buddy in the same company, we both played water polo. I played for one season before I got cut, but we were on the same team. And I asked him early on during like our version of boot camp, we call it plebe summer. Hey, what do you want to do? And he's like, oh, I want to become a SEAL. And I remember this distinctly. I said, why would you want to do that? You know, because I just thought it was this crazy monumental thing to do. You know, the people I looked up to were the older guys on the water polo team. I remember very clearly there was like this click where I didn't say it out loud, but I thought to myself, if that's where all the legit guys go, that's where I want to go.
What was your freshman year? What year was it?
So 2005.
So there was a war going on.
Yeah.
And you went to the Naval Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do that? And then I think that's really curious. I think it's a little bit different.
You got to imagine. So I came from an immigrant family. Not to say that's an excuse, but, you know, there's just a whole lot of America I didn't know or understand. Backtracking, it was actually like in fourth grade. I was like at this church camp or picnic, I should say. And it was my godfather who I think he went to VMI, so Virginia Military Institute. I think he went to VMI. He just told me, hey, you should go to a service academy. He told me West Point at first. So being a, impressionable young kid who looked up to him, I said, sure, why not? And then it became this self-fulfilling prophecy where when people would ask me, hey, where am I going to go to college? I would say West Point. And then sure enough, I started believing it, started working towards it. And then I found out that Naval Academy had a water polo team. So that was really the jump that made me go from one to the other. Honestly, I was just kind of like this dumb kid who was like, all right, hey, it sounds like a cool thing to do. I get to serve my country, have fun while doing it. I really didn't have any idea of the gravity or, how serious this all was.
And another question, Asian parents that don't speak too much English, are they impressed with the Navy SEAL or would they be more impressed with the doctor?
Good question. I think at this point, SEAL. Just because, me having gone through it and all, they realized like they only knew like on paper how hard it was, but I think after seeing me go through it and live it at least to the best of their ability, they said, okay, this is like way more legit. In fact, and like us as team guys, I'm sure we all hate this. I swear to you, my dad has no idea what he's putting on his car, but if you look at his car, there's like stickers like on the car, like my son's a Navy SEAL, or like, and it's just like a SEAL Team 8 sticker. I don't even know where he got a SEAL Team 8 sticker. I was never even an East Coast guy. I was a Team 1 guy. So he just has his and I think he has a SEAL Team 3 sticker as well. I don't know where he got it, but I'm not going to be like, take that off. So I think, they're pretty proud. And I think they realized it wasn't the easiest thing to do.
It's not a few number of people whose parents immigrated here who then became SEALs themselves. So like what, if it's not too prying too much, where did your parents come from and what was their impetus in coming here?
Yeah. So it both came from South Korea. Actually, my mom and dad met in LA. So my dad immigrated after he was done with his service. And this is where I call him either a really brave man or a crazy man. He only had enough money for a one-way ticket, made it to America. And for whatever reason, he flew into New York. I actually don't know to this day why. I should probably ask him. And he took a Greyhound bus from New York all the way to California, was dead broke, had no money. So what does he do? Our family grew up Catholic. So he goes to a church and just talks to a priest. And that is how he started his life in America. My mom immigrated with my grandparents. And it was through church how they all met. But that's kind of like the story of how it all began in LA.
Let's dig into buds. So we usually ask this question: what was your favorite part of buds? What was your worst part of buds? Like, describe the moment, describe the feelings and the thought processes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We can start with the worst part. It actually wasn't the cold. No, actually, I take that back. The cold, yeah, that fucking sucked. All of it sucked. The CS gas. Honestly, for me, probably the hardest part was
Yes, gas.
yeah, the what? Yeah,
Paper cut. Oh my god, that's nothing.
dude, what? That shit was horrible, man. Because I'm an idiot. I didn't realize it was gonna be that bad. I breathed in the whole thing, because I was like, oh, I shouldn't be that. And next thing you know, I'm that dude who's like on the ground, like convulsing and trying to dig the ground to find air, which I don't know what my body was trying to do. So that's why it was so bad, because I really underestimated it. That thing was bad, at least for me.
All right, best part.
Probably the moment that sticks out the most is that we are running to Chow from Hell Week, and my buddy's running in the 2 spot. And I remember he's like, hey guys, we're at the stoplight, like that small moment of rest.
Or the 2 spot, what does that mean?
Oh yeah, okay. So when you're running on the boat, as you know, the boat bows like this. So it's going to be a group of 2 people in the front. That's the 1 spot. So you're running with on your head, and for the viewers. And the middle spot, which is typically the heaviest spot since a boat bows like this, that's the 2 spot, which is the hardest spot. And then the 3 spot is the spot just behind it. So you're running like this in pairs. 1, 2, 3. So my buddy was in the 2 spot, and I was running in the 3. And we're at this stoplight, on the way to get to Chow during Hell Week. You're just constantly running with that thing on your head. And I remember my buddy kind of like, and he never did this, he was just always like that really rock solid tough dude. So I knew this is when he was hurting. He was just like, hey, can someone swap with me real quick? He's like, I'm hurting really bad. And initially, I'll be honest with you, we're all exhausted. I was tired too. I didn't say anything. I was thinking, oh, is someone going to switch with him? And everyone's quiet, myself included. So there was a huge moment of shame too. I was like, am I that guy? Like, am I a piece of shit? And then I remember the words he went like this. He said, hey, really, guys? Come on. And I remember, like, I mustered every bit of strength I had in me, and I just tapped him on the shoulder, and I was like, all right, man, I got you. And he let out, like, this thunder war cry, like, fuck yeah, Choi, that's what the fuck I'm talking about. You're my boy. And so we make it to Chow. And I remember, like, I'm not trying to exaggerate, but dude, I'm about to pass out. I'm like fucking exhausted. And I remember I looked at him. I'm like, hey, I love you, man. That's why I did it. But I don't have too many more of those left in me, man. So that was probably the proudest moment that I felt throughout. It's the one that's kind of resounds in my head.
Rock on. Did buds overall live up to your expectations?
But yeah, man, that thing was it was a grind. It was, looking back on that now, since, I'm in my 30s, late 30s, I'm just like, wow, like that was quite the task to go through.
So you did that, got to the team. You said you're team 1?
Team 1.
So West Coast guy, you want to kind of go through your military experience, deployments, all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went the officer route, so Naval Academy got officer. So I started off as an assistant platoon commander over at 1. I actually have a very unique path that happened at 1. I stayed there longer than most officers do. At that time, we were regionalized to the Pacific, or PACOM, as some will call it. Most will call it. So the first deployment that we worked up to was going to the Philippines. And, not the most exciting deployment. Really, all we could do is advise and assist. Unfortunately, we were not able to accompany with the Filipinos out there. We were down in the south in the island of Basilan, which is where there's an Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group known as Abu Sayyaf. Really, I think they're more like thugs who happen to be, quote-unquote linked to Al-Qaeda. Did the whole advise and assist mission out there. I mean, probably, quote-unquote, the most excitement that we've ever seen was when we advised the Filipinos on, a few of their missions. They would go out, get into a few firefights, come back, and, we'd be the first line of a medical care to patch them up before calling the medevac to get out there. So that was the last regionalized deployment for 1, because at this time, teams 3, 5, and 7 were on the same cycle, and, they were deploying worldwide. So after that deployment, we went back into cycle with teams 3, 5, and 7. And so there still had to be one quick turnaround deployment that happened in between. So we had like a 5-month gap to deploy to Guam, where it was more advise and assist. And they kept me and my other buddy, who is our sister platoon commander, there for this deployment. So I did half of it with our platoon, same platoon, and then he did half of it, and we were interim platoon commanders. So we did the Guam deployment, once again, just very advise and assist heavy mission where we're just going out there to like Indonesia, Korea, Thailand, you name it, where we're working with our host nation ally counterparts and just training up with them. Then looped back into one again. They kept us there, thankfully. And this time they said, hey, you guys are going to the show. You guys get to go to Iraq. So at the time, it was 2 troop that got selected. So Delta Echo Foxtrot platoon. I was Foxtrot platoon commander. And the cool thing is, it was a lot of familiar faces. So a lot of the older guys were, in the same class as me or like a class above or below. So we all knew each other, which was great. And funny enough, my platoon chief was my LPO when I was a new guy, my lead petty officer when I was a new guy. And he was also my second phase instructor at the time as well, when we're going through buds. And so, we already knew each other quite well, still friends to this day, we still keep in touch. And so we finally got to go to Iraq, and ours was very drone heavy. So basically flew Scan Eagle, and then from there, we'd just call a lot of CAS, close air support, drop bombs on bad guys. So once again, at least from my end, not the most kinetic, but depending on whichever region you went to, especially up closer towards the north, those guys were able to see some action. Now, unfortunately, bullets are real. So Chuck Keating did, pass away on that deployment. So, that's the unfortunate thing, but, it's also, it's what we signed up for to do. But that was my operational career in a nutshell. After that, went over to Guam, did the operations officer position for a short stint because I said I was going to be getting out. And then they finally put me in Warcom over at headquarters at the very end just to help out with the operations department. And then that's when I exited out after that, circa 2018.
I didn't know Chuck Keating, that was your group.
Yeah, that was our deployment.
You want to talk about Chuck Keating a little bit?
Yeah, what a guy. What an awesome guy. The funny thing is people ask me why I never switch over my phone to an iPhone because I'm one of those guys who is the green bulb. I use an Android. And I think there's this subtle part of me for every team guy that I know that passed away, Chuck being one of them, it was on my phone, like I still have, text messages from him and things like that. And, he was just, and that's probably the reason why I don't switch over, maybe it's like this subconscious thing. But with that said, he was like your epitome of like a work hard, play hard, just a fun loving, like life loving guy. He was always in great spirits. Nothing bothered him. And I mean, like that guy he was just always, what's the best word to describe it? He was there. He was like with it. Like he always performed, always had the biggest smile on his face, having the time of his life. Once again, when work came about, he was super serious, worked super hard. When it was time to party, like, he partied hard. And yeah, he was just one of those guys who just brought so much life and spirit to the team. And then, whenever people saw him, people were always happy to see him. It's like, oh, Chuck, what's up? In the platoon space, he was always laughing, made us laugh. So it was, definitely, he's just one of those guys that just had this very charismatic and, positively infectious personality about him.
As a whole, military experience, what was, let's say, the best moment you had, or the best moments, the best times, and then also the worst? What's the most difficult?
I think the best moments, honestly, was that, everything leading up to that deployment. So just having the opportunity to be at Team 1 again with the boys, a Foxtrot platoon commander, I thought that was that was the best time of my life. It was so much fun. We had a great platoon, a great team. We still keep in touch to this day. The fact that we were training up and finally getting to go to the show, getting to go to the Middle East, getting to go to Iraq, do good work, kill bad guys, in whatever shape or capacity or form. That was really one of the happiest and funnest times of my life. And I think it shows, considering how us as Foxtrot platoon, we still keep in touch with each other. We're still super happy to see each other every single time.
I think it's funny. Like you talk about your experience there in war and as a commander, you're bubbly about it. You're cheerful about it. And there's such a narrative at this time where like people think that veterans they're deeply wounded and traumatized, but most of the guys I know have nothing but smiles and good times to talk about. Even the worst times, there's something nostalgic about it. And I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, once again, I think people deal differently. And don't get me wrong, PTSD is a real thing. And I think it just really depends on the person. And maybe it's because in my case, I've never seen direct combat, direct action, that I can be so positive about this experience. I think the overarching theme, though, just knowing, at a higher level, like a higher calling, like we were legit getting rid of doing bad things to bad people, getting rid of bad people in this world. And I think that was something that, I suddenly found solace in, when people ask, do you sleep well? I'm like, yeah, so fuck yeah, I sleep well. Like, we're fucking killing bad people, So, and maybe that's why, like, I don't know, happy about it, or, bubbly, or, I appreciate life more. Can't speak for others, but maybe that's the angle I come from.
Do you have like a favorite mission, a favorite moment overseas that you look back on and think that was it? That was the epitome of exactly what I wanted to achieve in the SEAL teams.
So we got word from our task unit commander, rest in peace, that there was a special request from, I want to say it was from Special Forces guys, that they were going to do this mission. We knew nothing about it, but they were just asking for bodies. I remember telling my platoon very early that, hey, listen, like, my job as your platoon commander is to find you all meaningful work. And I get it. We're flying drones here. It's not even us who are flying them, and we're not dropping the bombs. And I get it. People are not happy. People are bored here. So this came up from our task unit commander, and I said, okay, I am sending as many people as I can. I'm going to send all the boys out. I'll keep the minimum force requirement here on base. And so we're getting ready to get the guys out there. And I remember somewhere along the way on the manifest, they messed up. I don't know who they are, but somebody messed up. And I remember the guy, he's looking at me, and we had a good relationship. And he just looks at me. He's like, hey, sir, like, I can't load these guys. They're not on the manifest. And I looked at him and said, hey, bro, please, like, I'm not even talking, like, just bro to bro, please just do me this one favor. I gotta get these guys out tonight because everything kicks off tomorrow. If we don't get on this bird, then they can't support this mission. And I need you guys, I need them to get on. Whatever it is, I'll do whatever it takes. And I could tell he thought for a moment, but thankfully, I think because we had good rapport and he liked me, he was like, okay, I'll get them on here. So sent them off, had no idea what they were doing. And now it goes to the point of one day, 2-3 days later, I'm like looking on the TV because news is always running. Fox News, special forces in Syria. And I'm like, damn it. And, there was like that whole thing that broke out about they're wearing patches that they shouldn't have been wearing and all that stuff. So you can actually Google, if you type in Fox News, special forces in Syria, I could point out exactly who is who because most of the guys are from Foxtrot Platoon. And I remember calling my task unit commander and being like, hey man, just take a look at the TV screen. And you could hear him go like, God damn it. Like, so that was kind of like the funny thing that came of it. But thankfully, like, hey, the successful mission, they did advise assist in the company the way that they were supposed to, and everybody, everything all worked out well. So that was probably a good moment. And the other one is tying along those lines is I remember there was opportunities up north for us to, at least the officers, to get some more experience to get after it. But we still need to keep minimum force requirement on base where we're currently at. And, my assistant platoon commanders, bless their hearts. They are some of the most selfless guys I know, because I remember they looked at me and they said, hey, listen, like, we know that you want to go and do this. We will understand if you decide that we stay here and you get to go. And then, I always thought, hey, when caught between two choices is the one that you don't want to make, that's typically the right one. So I remember I looked at them. It didn't take too long for me to think about it. I just said, hey, listen, like, we're over halfway into deployment. You guys are the future. It'd be fucked up if I don't give you guys this opportunity to go do it. My time is done operationally. It's your guys' turn to go. So I was able to send them out instead of me to go and, go with the platoons that needed some additional help to go do the advice assistant and company mission. So I think those are probably the two proudest moments that come to mind.
Awesome. Did you know you were going to transition out? Did you want to do a full career? What was the thought process behind that?
I knew I wasn't going to stay career.
Well, why?
I just wanted to stay for as long as I was operational. And once that ended, I was like, all right, it's time to move on.
I have to get into that because I think it is an interesting thing. You go to the Naval Academy for 4 years, a little bit of brainwashing, maybe. For whatever reason, you went in not knowing you're going to be a SEAL, and you decided and you were able to pick up orders. So you go through this process and you said, I'm going to get out at first opportunity as soon as I'm not operational anymore. And officers do that. Like, How did you go through that process, knowing all that you have to give and not and knowing like that outcome? That's crazy.
I don't know. Like, I just thought, like, hey, I'm going to stay until it's fun. And once it's not fun anymore, it's time to jet. And not to say that the work's not important. I'm not saying that.
What was the next step of your career going to look like had you stayed in?
I wrote my XO at the time. He asked me if I wanted to take a troop commander. And I did think about it for like a split second, because he said, I remember his words, like, hey, if you take this troop commander right now, we'll spot promote you right now. And I saw that he was about to pencil me in, and I was like, nah, I'm good, sir. And he looked at me and he's like, what? I'm like, I'm gonna get out. And he's like, okay. Like, I think it caught him off guard that I was so quick about being like, no, I'm good.
Did you know what you were going to do beforehand? Did you think about, like, while you're sitting in your bed in the Naval Academy, while you're on deployments, you were like, what is the next version of my life? What's the next chapter?
I didn't know exactly what I wanted to after getting out the military. Arguably, I still don't, still figuring it out. One thing I did know at the very end of it all is I wanted to be a high school water polo coach. So that's still like the end goal radar. Like, that's what I know what I want to do. So in between, didn't have too much of an idea.
Did you think that when you made the transition, did you think it was hard? Was it like another form of CS gas, or did you have to like smoothly transition to the civilian world?
Thankfully, because of all these programs out now, I think the transition was actually fairly smooth. In my case, because I had so many friends go to business school, get their MBA. So I think because of the support network and just being able to talk, have real talk with people and just see what their struggles and experiences were, in addition to the different programs that are available now, I thought it was a fairly smooth process, and it kind of helped me map out like what it is that I, wanted to do or should consider doing. So I thought it was actually fairly smooth. It wasn't too bad.
Did you get your MBA?
I did.
Okay. If somebody was getting out, we all have our MBAs here. What is your advice to somebody? They're getting out. Hey, Joe, should I get my MBA?
Yeah, I would usually ask some questions first, but my general answer is going to be yes. Do you have a family? What are your goals and plans? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to stay? What are you looking to do? Because the truth is, not all jobs require an MBA. Actually, most don't. But what I do tell guys is this: hey, listen, man, if you have your full GI Bill, which you probably do unless you have kids, I would highly consider doing it, because it gives you a real opportunity to, one, take a break from life. By virtue of doing that, clears up your head. You're going to be able to meet so many different people from different backgrounds that were not military and part of the civilian sector working world, that it actually might give you some not only connections, but an idea of what you want to do next. So for those three reasons, I'm like, it's a free break, essentially.
Do you think during that process that you thought about what you wanted to do next enough?
Ooh, looking back on it, knowing what I know now, no. Knowing what I know now, no. I was shooting in the dark.
I constantly talk to people about getting their MBAs, like hundreds and hundreds of people over time. And I'm a little bit more ambivalent. It was a good experience. Like, I will say that it was worthwhile to me. I don't think that I fully took advantage of the opportunities that were in front of me, because I pursued a little bit the things that you're supposed to, which is consulting, investment banking, follow the crowd into those things, as opposed to just keep trying different things. I don't think I took full advantage of the 2 years of trying to develop myself.
It's funny you mentioned that, because going into business school, I knew those were the two things I didn't want to do. So sometimes what I'll tell people, not only vets, but people are going to their MBA, I would say, because this was the advice I followed. It was, you don't necessarily need to know what you want to do, but it helps if you know what you don't want to do. So I knew consulting and banking were not in it for me. So I just stayed clear from all that, which I did think helped free up time and headspace to explore other things.
When you were doing that, I felt in my experience that when things got quiet, that's when a little bit of the demon showed up. So when I was rootin' tootin', hard charging, I never had a bad night of sleep, and I didn't have any kind of emotional issues, right? And all of your answers are very positive, and it's beaming and it's smiling. I had kind of a pessimistic thing going on, and I would say that like I kind of hurt myself during the quiet. This is the transition. You're at school. You said you have time to take a breath. Was the breath good, or was the breath bad?
Ooh, I think you bring up a great point. I think it was both. And frankly speaking, I still struggle with it today, where I do keep myself busy, because to your point is, if I have too much free time, I can consume myself with those negative thoughts, just being completely transparent and, just honest about it, is I do still struggle with that. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm still a bit of a go, go, go mentality, because I don't want that too much of that alone time, if you will.
Did you go to MBA straight out of the military?
No, I took a year off, saved up enough money to do it. It was part of the plan. I went back and coached my old high school water polo team, which was probably one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done. It was amazing. Did that, and then I went off to Spain for 3 months. I literally just Googled a homestay program.
Where in Spain?
I was near Rota base.
Okay.
Yeah, so mine was like a complete like adult program. Like once again, I think it was just this one guy who had like a Instagram, and I don't know how it all happened, but basically I paid. It was like I paid him a finder's fee. It's kind of like I don't know. So looking back, it was a little bit sketchy, but
Joe, do you want to crouch on my couch? I'll teach you Spanish.
yeah, right. So I got connected actually with the Spanish family, young couple. They have 2 kids now, so I still keep in touch with them here and there. And then so I stayed with them, and that was the deal. Is I teach them English, and they let me live there. And I tried to pick up some Spanish, but it was quite difficult actually. So I don't know if I was quite successful in that endeavor, but did that. Came back earlier because I found out I got into Berkeley for my MBA. Thankfully, through the water polo network, because it's a small community, I was able to get connected through my high school buddy who played in college. That coach, he was the assistant Olympic team coach at the time. So I got to go and basically help out with the Olympic team getting ready for that cycle. And in fact, the head coach asked me. So I did put them through it was only like 2.5, like 3 hours. I put them through like a mini hell day, some surf torture and, just kind of just fuck games, out in the beach.
What are fuck games?
It sounds just like how it is. It's games, supposedly, that just fuck with you. Just meant to be painful, has no purpose except for it to hurt, and just designed to just make you miserable.
Were fuck games part of Buds, or is that just in the teams?
Dude, it's all over the place, both.
It was both. Did we call it that when we were in Buds? When you were Bud students, or was like, oh, they're playing fuck games? We said extra Buds. You're getting destroyed in the laundry room in the middle of the night because somebody's getting divorced and they're drunk. And they come in and they wake everybody up, and you're like, wait, we're not on the clock here. Literally, no, like, this is illegal. I could get this guy fired. We would be like, dude, I'm getting extra Buds.
Yeah, no, we never called it extra Buds when I went through.
So fuck games were more like, one platoon wonders messing with new guys or whatever it was, like hazing.
Good times. No, just kidding. Not good times.
That's a good move. A year off after the teams, Berkeley MBA. And then what did you do after MBA?
After the MBA, I actually went off to do more grad school. We're coming off of, it was like COVID period. So job market didn't look the strongest first. There was an opportunity to go to more school, and I was kind of dabbling in this startup idea. So I was like, all right, whatever, let's go to more school. I have GI Bill left. So I actually went to SMU in Dallas for it was a year-long program, but I only went one semester because I ended up finding a job in LA. Took up this job doing, it was at a virtual reality music concert startup.
That's wild. How long were you there for?
I was there for a year and a half before I decided to part ways with them.
Did that scratch your itch for something entrepreneurial and small and startup like?
Oh yeah, it definitely did. Learn the great, learn the ugly. I'm sure y'all go through it all the time. The highs and lows of a startup.
Everyone's very smooth here. We've hit stride. We've been playing on the water for 6 years running.
Exponentially growing.
As people transition, they go to MBAs. A lot of people through the job search, they say, you need to pick a startup that's going to be on that rocket ship. It's really hard to pick one. And I actually give counter advice. I'd say it's great to go work with one that's going to fail because it doesn't matter. You're not going to be at the end of the road. You're going to learn a lot, and it's probably going to get you to that next job. Now, I don't know whether that one failed or it just wasn't the fit for you. Was that a very positive experience, even though you left it?
I believe that I learned a lot of great lessons from it, from the positive sense. And I do think, I had some negative experiences where I was like, okay, I know, moving forward, I learned from those experiences, of what I didn't like and what I didn't like seeing or being a part of, with regards to just team dynamics, leadership, and so on and so forth.
Giving advice to somebody else who would be in your shoes and the same thing. They've gone through the process. They went through these beautiful schools. They did this. They're looking for something that can't fail. Is it important to look for something that can't fail? What did you learn that you can share with somebody else about that?
Yeah, I think what's most important is, especially if you're going that startup route, is find something you believe in. Because as we know in experience, you're going to have the highest of highs, and you're going to probably experience way more lows, with going through a startup, just the nature of the beast. And I believe that what's most important is having that fire, believing in what you're doing, and really trusting the team. Because once again, it's going to be beyond the company, your job mechanics in of itself. You're going to be spending a lot of time together. And if you're going to be doing that, you might as well do it with the people you like and doing it for a mission that you really believe in.
So you did that. Where'd you go next?
took a few months off and landed this job at Amazon.
So you had the startup experience and then the Amazon experience. You literally had the two extreme polar ends of that.
Right.
Compare and contrast a little bit. What are the biggest things you can talk about in that differential?
Obviously just with any organization that grows bigger, it's, Amazon's quite a large company. There can be a lot of red tape, whereas I feel like in a startup it's much leaner and you can move very, very quickly. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things I see. On the flip side, when you talk about security, I do see a lot of financial security and mechanisms in place where there's not so much worry about, like, oh my gosh, is the company going to be surviving, in the next month or two? It's like, no, not the case. It's the company is going to be, thriving for quite a bit. So I think in one element, that ambiguity and that worry is not there working for a big company. But then on the flip side, I think that level of excitement and, being able to like actually like be a contributor in the sense of, hey, I'm directly affecting the strategy of where the direction we're going, that doesn't exist at a big company.
You don't think they're going to go out of business on Prime Day today?
Yeah, I think they'll be all right.
So the question that you have, how long have you been at Amazon for?
I think about 10 months now.
Okay. So I did operations for 2 years in Amazon, and there's certainly a lot that I learned in that.
Mm-hmm.
What is working at a small company and different ones versus a big company? What have you learned? What are takeaways that you think that you could impart on somebody else who maybe doesn't do that experience?
When you're at a startup, having that belief in yourself that you're there for a reason, they hired you for a reason. So don't be afraid to have a bigger voice. I certainly, there were times where I was timid and, did not voice my opinion fully, especially, when something I completely disagreed with something. I'm like, dude, like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, I wish looking back on it, that's a lesson I learned, because now that I'm at a bigger company like this, I realized how much far less of a voice that you have. So I think that's something that I certainly took for granted. So that'd probably be one of the biggest lessons that I learned. And I think the other aspect is that what I learned in the teams, and also that translated to a lot to the startup, and what I learned in the startup actually just really translates to like really anywhere, like even here at this big company. Because when you think about like being organized, hey, having a routine, just showing up, being willing to work, being a good teammate, all that stuff translates. So I don't even think, despite the size of the company, all these principles still stand true, that, hey, regardless of the size of the organization or how fast or big or slower, well they're doing or not, like all these principles just stay the same. Just be a good dude,
So there's an interesting thing that I had at Amazon that's a takeaway from a boss that I didn't think was particularly effective. I don't need to go into detail of that, but I think that they led with fear and they wouldn't really let anybody voice their opinion at the table. And Amazon has this interesting thing. When you present an idea, you're not allowed to do it in PowerPoint. You have to write a paper. You go sit around a table. Everybody reads the paper first. And then basically when the first person decides they start ask questions, they just do. And so if you wrote the paper, you sit at the head of the table and then everyone is quiet until they're not. And then someone just starts talking. It's a really weird thing. I don't know that it's the most effective way, but I think that this one leader, it was odd because they were tyrannical. So nobody would talk. And at one given point, he got really frustrated. And I don't remember, it may have been directed at me, but not really. But he said, do you think that it's okay for you not to have an opinion? And everybody's in there being like, you're basically told me to shut my mouth the whole time. So like what the deal is, I don't care if your opinion is wrong. You don't get to sit at this table unless you have an opinion. And because there's no communication that's ever going to occur. And I said, that's actually like kind of a brilliant thing. Now, had you not been so tyrannical and shut it, if you weren't Darth Vader, then I thought you were going to force choke me. So you were the one who stifled the opinions. But it was something kind of powerful to be like, you're sitting at this table. It's okay to be wrong. Have an opinion and then back it up and then commit to it. And I thought that was really a powerful thing. And I don't know that that's necessarily the policy of the company, but it came from that odd way that they present. You have to write a paper. You're not allowed any screens. Sit at the table, read. It's interesting.
No, I actually do like that point. Have an opinion. It could be different, but just have an opinion. But to your point, it's like, hey, but you got to create the culture where it's okay to express your opinion.
Let's pivot to some more optimization questions. So do you have a sort of morning routine you do to get yourself amped up and prep for the day? Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 things you do. You're one of the most you got like a bouncy, happy persona. How do you kick off your day and maintain that?
Yeah, there's a few things that I do. So one, okay, if I'm not hungover, and I'll if I'm not hungover, I will wake up. I try and get up by anywhere between like 5:30 and 6. There's a forcing mechanism actually because I live far enough away from work, and LA has beautiful traffic. Just kidding, it's horrible. I try and hit the road no later than 6:30. Ideally, I'm on the road by 6, but it just depends on the day. But by doing so, it allows me to get to the gym in the morning. But on the way to the gym, I do two things. Like I do while I'm driving, I do my meditations, I pray, and then I will listen to an audiobook if I have some time left on the way there. Then once I get to the gym, get my workout in, you know, get the day started right. And then from there, if I do have time, I do like to dry sauna. I think that's very therapeutic. So I'll do all that and then I make my way into work. Funny thing is, I think I'm the only guy maybe at Amazon that does this is because after you work out and shower, you're still kind of like your body's hot. You're running hot. So I don't want to change it to my work clothes immediately because if I do, I'm gonna start sweating right through it. So I actually show up to work in a fresh pair of gym clothes. So I'll shower and I have a shirt, shorts, and flip flops on, and I show up to work. And once my body cools down, then I'll go to the bathroom and change to my work clothes.
So as you're driving, you're meditating.
Right.
What about your workout program? Do you have a program you like to follow, or you just make up your own stuff?
So the program that I follow is this guy is Dan John. He's like an Olympic throws like lift coach.
Oh, yeah, I love it. Lots of carries. Yeah.
Yeah, so actually Dan John spoke to us at Team 1 before our deployment. And so we actually ended up becoming friends. And so he gave us this program. It's called like Even Easier Strength, which is something that I still follow to this day. The premise is this. You just do 10 reps of these major muscle movements, push, pull, legs, carry, all that. And you're never supposed to be sore. So, but if you do it every single day and you gradually increase weight and it's not difficult and you're never sore, you will get stronger. So that's a program I follow. I like it. I like the fact of not being sore, and I'll do that and I'll throw in some cardio after that. So usually whether it's like a jog, maybe some sprints or an inclined walk on the treadmill or swimming, I just try to mix it all up.
I always wonder about technology, smartphones, computers. Do you have certain portions of the day where you're like, no more? You shut off the phone, you focus on something else, read a book, another person. Do you have a routine you like to follow?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when I'm driving is when I'm best about it, like listening to audiobooks. I will admit, once I'm getting ready for bed, I'm horrible about it. Like I'm that guy who's on my phone. But I have been working on just basically just not picking it up because once I do, it's all clickbait. It's, next thing I'm like sucked into the YouTube machine and I spend like 30 minutes or an hour where I should have just been sleeping. So it's something that I do. I'm very cognizant of, especially these days. And, it's something I just try and just avoid doing. But I will admit, I'm not good about it when it comes to nighttime. Throughout the day, I feel like I'm pretty decent about it.
What about optimization for work? Do you have a method of getting into the zone, whether it's a certain type of music, a location? You talked about pray. Do you set intentions? How do you really get yourself in a flow state?
I try and set up the emails that I want to send out for the next day. I prep for the next day if I have the time by writing all these emails that I'm planning on blasting out. So that the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, since, people work in different time zones, I'm in the Pacific, somewhere in the East Coast. I just hit send. That's the first thing I do once I wake up in the morning. I go about by day, driving to the gym, work out. So by the time I'm in the office, hopefully, got some responses and things like that. You'll rarely see me sit down in the office. I'm actually one of the few people I think I'm the only guy who just pretty much stands up the entire time because I do want to stay focused. And then I do listen to this thing called binaural beats. I don't know if you've heard of it. Yeah. So, it's for those that don't know, it's like, music that's set at certain frequencies that's supposed to help you concentrate. Now, whether it's placebo effect or not, it works for me. So if I need to just buckle down and get some work done, there you go. I'll just plug those right in and I am just in the zone and just crunching away. So I think those are some habits I just try and set in place,
What about books? 1 to 3 books that have changed your life?
So 2 books stand out. So obviously the Bible, that's been something throughout my life. That's one. The second book that stands out is actually this book called Attached. And quick backstory on it, not to get too much into detail, but, it was a few years ago, had a very serious girlfriend and, it didn't work out, all that stuff. But I was devastated, completely devastated by it. And it was something that my therapist actually recommended to me to try and read this book. And I don't use this word lightly. The book was actually quite life-changing because it helped me understand the human psychology of, one, I'm not alone because there's many people that fall in different categories of their attachment styles. And it helped me understand like, okay, 1, I'm not a crazy person. 2, I'm normal. 3, people have gone through this. And because now that it helped me understand the type of category of the person I was, it actually explain things and made things make sense, where I was like, that's why I'm feeling this way.
What about movies? 1, 2, 3 movies you think that changed your life?
I'll say my favorite movies are Rocky IV with Ivan Drago. And then the other one is a Karate Kid. So maybe there's some element of I love this underdog story, but I guess who doesn't? Most influential, series or whatever you want to call it in my life was actually Dragon Ball. So for those that are familiar, that was life changing. Teach some good life lessons.
What's the best advice that anybody's ever given you?
This one sentence will solve a lot of problems, and it's inwardly reflecting. Is don't be a bitch. That's probably one of the best lines that I heard. Hey, just don't be a bitch, because it helps solves a lot of problems. I think for most people. To add on to that, something that my buddy who's still in right now, I do like what he said is being hard is a perishable skill. You always got to be constantly pushing yourself.
You did say one thing that you dropped it real quick and we ignored it. You said, my therapist said.
Yeah.
When did you start doing therapy and how has that changed your life?
It was about 2 years ago. I hit that breaking point where I just literally walked into the office, I started crying, and then I laughed at myself being like, all right, I need to get some help. What more proof do I need? And who would have thought that it would be over a breakup? But the thing is, the therapist was very kind about it. And she kind of laughed too. She was like, hey, don't worry, Joe. There's 2 things that will really mess up a team guy. It's war and women. So it happens to be the latter in my case. But I would say it was a very, very enlightening journey in the sense of learning a lot about myself and realizing this therapist is like my mental coach or like my emotional coach who has the tools and is trained to be able to help me get stronger in this category.
We all strove to be better team guys. And a lot of the story that we have, I feel like all of our stories, the origin story is all the same and it's almost boring. Like we're all very different, but it's still more or less the same. I was a knucklehead, I did this. I was really tough, I did this. The transition stories, I don't think that we hear enough. And what does that look like? What makes you I know what makes you a better team guy. It's showing up. It's, working hard. It's grinding. It's sweating the details. It's being all in all the time. What makes the next chapters in life better? What have been good for you?
The one thing that comes to my mind is don't say no to opportunity. Just say yes. Because, and I caveat it with only you will know this deep down in your heart. If fear is the reason why you're saying no to opportunity, then it's not good enough. That's not a good enough reason. So my thought is say yes to every single opportunity.
All right. Good note to finish it. Joe, you got anything you want to add?
No, just thanks for having me on here, guys. It was a good time. It was actually a pleasure.
Rock on. Thank you.
All right.
That's it for this episode. If you want to check out more from the podcast, head to zeroeyes.com/nobel, where you can see show notes, read more about our guests, and suggest guests or topics of your own. Until next time, stay in the fight. Don't ring the bell.